Porsche Exchange, it's all about creating a legendary ownership experience that embodies our guest lifestyle. Our Porsche service team utilizes cutting-edge technology that delivers a transparent service visit and keeps us in constant contact with our guests. And I can't think of anyone more qualified to work on your Porsche, new or classic, than our Porsche certified technicians. Whether you're a longtime guest or new to our dealership, I welcome you to experience legendary at the Porsche Exchange. If you're a Porsche owner looking for reliable, convenient service without leaving the comfort of your home or office, look no further and take advantage of the Exchange at Home complimentary pickup and drop-off service exclusively at the Porsche Exchange in Highland Park.
After 7 events, it comes down to this. A classic of American sports car racing, Sebring will either shake them apart or strengthen their resolve. One thing's for certain, everyone better hold on because it's going to be a bumpy ride as we get ready to watch the PCA Sim Racing Series 10 Pro Class live here on Podium Esports. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth tonight is Kenneth Bueno. Cameron Avedon is on social media, and Ryan Bowers producing while using cameras provided by Ducky Beard. But before we get to the racing, Series 10 is brought to you by the Porsche Exchange, which has been family owned and operated for over 40 years. Located on the North Shore of Chicago, the Porsche Exchange has grown to be the largest volume Porsche dealer in the entire Midwest. Along the way, they've won the Porsche Premier Dealership Award for many years in a row and has been chosen to be one of the few Porsche exclusive manufacturer dealerships in the entire country. Find out more at 4Porsche.com or follow them on Instagram at Porsche Exchange. Also, Six Sigma Sim Racing is proud to announce the Season 10 Clean Driver Award. One driver in each PCA Sim Racing class will win a Six Sigma Sim Racing $250 merchandise gift certificate. This goes to whoever earns the fewest incident points and license penalty points from their best 6 races this season. For more information, head to sixsigmasimracing.com. Well, as we saw last night, this track is known for catching a few drivers out, Kenneth. I'm sure it's going to be a challenge.
Yeah, this track has got a lot of personality, Joe. I mean, you've got concrete surfaces, World War II era parts of the track. This venue is very old. 1950 is when it opened. 17 turns. A lot of these very different corners, Joe Peak. You've got some fast corners, some slow corners, some corners in between, and that provides a lot of physical activity behind the wheel. And, you know, with a lot of drivers in real life saying that this track is somewhat harder to drive than Le Mans, just based on how tough it is on the drivers and the cars, Sebring is going to be a lot of fun for these drivers battling with the Porsche 991 RSRs tonight.
Indeed. Now, the battle for the championship is getting interesting here because Jesse Lyon currently leads the points, but it's not much between himself and Christopher Pies. Now, Jesse does have quite a few drop points, 286, while Pies has 285. So they're pretty close on that measure, but with Jesse being those 38 points ahead, obviously he's got the advantage still in that realm. Now, Raphael Amarim is too far out, but he could play the spoiler because he's been very quick in qualifying, and he could steal valuable points from them in that sense. We'll have to keep an eye on it. It's going to be a little complicated, unfortunately, but we'll try to keep you abreast of things once all is said and done. If anything, Amarim and Sang are in a very tight fight down there for the 3rd position. And then look at the battle for 6th place. There is less than 70 points between 6th and 10th. So that could just so easily swap around before all is said and done. Now, a reminder that PCA Sim Racing social media offers in-race reports, breaking news, and announcements through Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and Twitch. To subscribe, key in the platform name and add /PCA Sim Racing. So, as I mentioned, qualifying is underway, and right now, Chris Pies has the pole position. It was Lyon who was up at the top for quite some time. But Raphael Amarim has just stolen it back just now as he had pipped Jesse Lyon not long ago. So it is swapping around very late, which I have to admit, Kenneth, this is actually somewhat unusual. And a qualifying session this long, I usually don't see drivers finding an edge this late on.
You usually don't, but one thing you notice is that the sun is relatively low on the horizon, so this track is cooling down, and that also could just help the grip levels a little bit, and that's based off of Amarim's time, and he set a blistering 155.592. That is almost about 4/10 faster than Chris Pice and Jesse Lyon, who are sitting at around 155.9s right now. So Amarim really quick, and also just based on where the track's changing, and also you're burning a lot of fuel. You don't put a lot of fuel in the car, could help your lap time, but Amarim is really finding a lot of ground. Jesse Lyon, on the other hand, though, is going to have to find a way to get around Chris Pice in qualifying, because it's going to be really tough, but final 10 seconds probably won't get anything other than just that third place start for the race. 1 hour here from Sebring.
This is going to be close. He's looking 4 to 5 tenths above, and that's about how far he is behind the pole. Can he get it here? It's a 55.671. No, he's just shy by 0.08 of a second. Amarim will get those 35 bonus points, but Lyon still has 32 bonus points with that second place in qualifying. That's if this man does not overtake him, and he's kind of weaving around the backstretch, so I don't think this is one that he's particularly pleased with, and I'm showing him 2 tenths down, so not sure that he's going to jump up from this third place.
This is a really tough corner to make time or gain time. As the 14 of Chris Pice comes out, it looks like he's going to go for pit road, so he is not going to go in for that lap. That's huge there for Lyon at the very last second, just snatching away that second place starting position. And here's Justin Tseng trying to complete his lap here. And he's around the mid-sector of the course. And you'll see here, Joe, and over the course of the race, just how tough it is to drive here at Sebring. So many different types of corners. You've got a lot of bumps around the track, and that underbody is basically scraping the ground at almost all times, just with the way the oscillation is. We'll see what Tseng can do, but currently 5th on the charts. Not bad for him.
Absolutely. We've still got a couple drivers out there. Leif Peterson looks like he is on a flyer. And we mentioned Justin Tseng. Looks like he's going to try and finish the lap, but I'm not sure he's going to be able to improve unless he has a phenomenal final sector. But Leif Peterson taking all the way up to the limiter there on the revs as he comes around Sunset Bend. It's going to be tight on whether or not this is an improvement. He's going to complete the lap, and he sits in 11th as he tries to straight line it down to the finish line. 56.6, that's his personal best, but he stays in 11th, and indeed he is going to be the last driver across. So our qualifying is done, and Rafael Amarim with the 35 bonus points for the pole position steals it away from our main protagonists in the championship fight. Jesse Lyon will start next to him, as Chris Pies will start third. That's 2 points to the positive for Jesse Lyon over Chris Pies in the championship fight there. So not huge, but, well, we'll see if it's important by the end of it. Chris Braun will be 4th, and Justin Tseng 5th, as Logan Grotto starts P6 today. Then it is Nick Facciolo in 7th. Nicky Chan starting 8th tonight, as Mark Nistor will be 9th. And then row 5 is completed by James Franznick there in 10th.
We saw Leif Peterson put in that lap a couple of seconds ago. That lap good enough for 11th at the start. Thomas Briggs in the 4 car will be behind him in P12. James Huth in the number 12 car will be in 13th. 14th will go to the 771 of Enrico Gregorato. Nick Melorano and his infamous Dunkin' Donuts Porsche car will be in 15th. Ryan Cowley behind him in 16th. Patty Patterson 17th and 18th to the 250 of Dale Green. Joe Peak rounding out the field from Sebring.
Not a large field, but it's usually a very close one here at the Pro Class. Now, as we mentioned last night, if you joined us, you might remember us mentioning that the Porsche parade is currently underway at Palm Springs, and many of our admins are actually there remotely right now running the race. But Thomas Briggs, who's going to be starting from 12th, is also over there racing from the hotel currently. So he's got a rig set up. I've actually got a picture in front of me of it, and it's pretty impressive, all set up there on the hotel carpet and ready to go. So hopefully the internet connection is good enough there, and he'll have a good race here today. There you go. There is his setup. That's nicer than the setup I've got at home.
Yeah, that's I wonder how long that took to put together there on the hotel floor. They have a little table there too, set up the PC. Very sophisticated. I like it.
Yeah, that's actually, we're getting word that is the Six Sigma Sim racing rig that they've got set up there, which makes sense. So they're sponsoring the series. They're going to make sure that the drivers are taken care of if they have to go and do it at a special Porsche event. So best of luck, Thomas Briggs. We'll see what he can do. Now, my math has changed because I did the math before the qualifying was over, and according to Lion in first and Pies in third. But at that time, if Lion finished second or higher, he will clinch the championship no matter what Chris Pies does. I'm pretty certain that's probably hasn't changed since the points are not too drastically different from first to second. It's only 3 different. So I think it's still a second place or higher for Jesse Lion will clinch no matter what Chris Pies does from here. But we'll watch and see because it could all be wildly different come the end based on what we saw with the club class last night, which had all kinds of chaos in the first lap. We're crossing fingers we don't see that here tonight after the green flag, which is out now. And Amram is on the loud pedal. Ooh, big jump in the back as they fan out 4 wide for a brief moment. Somebody got a monster run back there. Let's see if that causes problems coming down into turn 1 as Amram manages to keep the lead, but Pies is ahead of Lion into second.
Now Pies gets into that second spot. Want to notice that the car who made that much ground before turn 1 was the 15 car of Ryan Cowley, up to 10th after starting 16th in the first couple of corners. Really good stuff by Cowley early on, and not afraid to send it in the first part of this Sebring track. So it is paid out in his favor, but they single file out quickly, and Pies has a run on Amram towards the hairpin. And this is a really tough corner, Joe P, because you're coming out of a tight right-hander and then sort of a little kink out to the left and then right back to the right. It's a very narrow piece of track, and you see side by side a little bit further back in the field. Looks like they've also settled that out quite quickly. That's looks like Gregorato and Mark Nister.
Yeah, we saw a few contacts in that little chicane out of the hairpin last night. So it is a very much a danger zone. As Amram leads Pies, he took a little bit of a look, did Chris, to try and see if he could sneak that lead away, but no dice. Oh, that was a big slide, though, from Rafael. I'd say he is on it. He doesn't want to give this win up.
No, he does not. He wants to be up front as much as possible. And the biggest thing here, he probably just wants to pull away, right? Wants to be in front of Pies in line by a large margin so that he can like relax a little bit at a track that's really tough to drive. But when you're trying to push this car as hard as you can at a track that really does not like any type of car at all, it will punish it no matter what, you can really find yourself in a pretty serious predicament if you end up with a mistake. But looks like Amram ends up in the right place, and we call this one, or at least I've heard a fellow commentator a while back call this one the turn of 1,000 lines, where you can take any sort of arc and it could work, maybe it doesn't. That part of the track is so wide, Sunset Bend, a lot of fun to watch him go through there.
Yeah, the bumps just really kind of open it up because you don't know if you're going to be necessarily as fast down to the inside. As meanwhile, watching Jesse Lion, current points leader, sits in third position, probably still in a good spot here with Pies directly in front of him. They've also got Sang back there. It's a 4-car train that is breaking away a little bit. Braun has lost about a second and a half back there in fifth. Here's the view from Sang, actually.
It's a nice view going down this bend onwards to the hairpin. And I mean, you talked about it, Joe Peak, when we were looking at the point standings. Not only is there a fight between the main championship competitors in Chris Pies and Jesse Lion, you've got those drivers further back that are third on back. Rafael Amarim in third, Justin Sang in fourth, Chris Braun in fifth. All of them are still relatively close. Now, Braun is further back, but if you look at Sang and Amarim, they are right there between each other. So this finish could mean the difference between third or fourth in the championship standings for this class. So you really got to watch out for what Sang and Amarim do just on the outside and the inside of this sandwich between the top two.
All of them keeping it on the track, at least for now. It's only lap 2, though, so very early days. And we have to remember, there's a pit stop later on. Drivers have limited amounts of fuel. Everybody is limited to a maximum of 70% fuel on board the car at all times. So they can only make it, from what we saw last night, to about 20 minutes left to go in the race. So about a 40-minute window that they have to try and take fuel. Meanwhile, Nick Facciolo back in the 8th position. is sizing up Nicky Chan, then decides against trying to make the overtake. So Briggs says, okay, thank you, maybe I'll have a go at it, but can't quite get inside.
Try and look for it though out of Sunset Bend, and it's so tough to find grip out of that corner when there's so many bumps, and when you put the throttle in a little too early, this car is going to step out. There's not that many places here at Sebring, Joe, to make passes happen. There are some hard braking zones where you can pull to the inside or outside of a driver and make a pass, but most other places are rather narrow and pretty dangerous. You run off track, you're going to risk going through the grass, and we've seen it before, Joe, at every other track where if it has grass, you slide in there and it's like ice, and it's really hard to recover before you end up in an outside barrier or a wall or whatever it may be in your way. So at this point, Briggs has to be cautious about where he decides to put that race car. Ryan Cowley, Leif Peterson behind, might end up in a battle. That's further back inside the top 10, but it looks like they have not settled it out as Cowley gets way loose and clipped the grass a little bit there.
Yeah, easy to do under braking. We saw a number of drivers get skittish down into that hairpin last night as well. So here's Cowley just into the top 10 now. He had been actually fighting, I think, with Leif Peterson. That or Peterson was fighting with Franstick. I did see that we had an overtake not too long ago, but didn't quite make out which drivers had swapped positions, but they're all in a train. So honestly, if anybody makes a mistake in this group here, Kenneth, I have to imagine it's going to be one, if not multiple spots that they give up.
Oh yeah, that's true. And also you have to wonder if there's a driver leading this pack, if they make a mistake, they might take other cars with them, and just because it's so narrow. So you can gain positions, but that's if you get by the mistake. And you never know when that mistake is going to happen or if you'll have enough space to maneuver around it. The fortunate thing is that we haven't seen many of those mistakes in these opening laps, so everybody seems to be cautious and aware of their situation as it stands, but no moves made so far through the majority of the field. Everybody keeping it cool through the Sunset Bend, and a beautiful camera shot from our producer Ryan Bauer, selecting it on the front straightaway for turn 1 as the whole field goes by.
In fact, I think since we've had our green flag, we've only had even a couple off tracks, let alone incidents out there that I can see. Drivers have been very, very clean at the start here, taking some big lessons out of that first race yesterday night to try and make up for that. Enrico Gregorato back here in 15th. He's very much sandwiched in this large group. That's Melorano in front of him and James Huth behind him.
He's going to have his work cut out for him. And the driver who came home in 8th, the last time we were out in this class at Watkins Glen, race number 7, was a pretty decent race for him, but caught in the middle of Justin Sang and Ryan Cowley in his finishing position. He's 15th now, so a little poorer on the track position, but Gregorato has a lot of time. It's just that this one is very different from Watkins Glen in terms of opportunities to pass. And Gregorato just has this long line of cars that does look rather intimidating at first. And when you see how much competition is right in front of you, we'll look back to Chris Price, who's holding on to second, and he has let Amarim walk away a little bit. 0.6 of a second, Joe, between these two, and I think Amarim starting to let off a little bit, not necessarily pushing it as hard, and can relax a little more. He's got some elbow room.
Indeed, and behind him, Jesse Lyon has been hovering behind that number 14 car. So I kind of wonder if Jesse is doing what I was saying before. He's just keeping Chris in check, knowing that if he finishes directly behind him, Chris is not going to be able to overtake him in the points. It's just not going to be enough. So right now, he doesn't have to be ahead of his rival. He just has to be within sight.
And there's nothing better, Joe, than having the upper hand or the higher ground in this championship battle, because he can just control his own fate. And obviously, there's the conversation of luck and certain things that can happen to you in a race that's out of your control. But nonetheless, if you're a guy like Jesse Lyon, you just have more influence over the situation at place, and you're going to force Pais to do more because he has to do more, and you don't have to do as much, and you can just sort of sit there and let him try to do all the work, which is really easy to do as a championship points leader, but it's deserving enough as Ryan Cowley continues his move up to the field. Had a look on the inside of Thomas Briggs, but let him go at the exit of that corner, heading for the hairpin. Side-by-side battle behind. That's Leif Peterson and James Franznick.
Almost looking at 3 wide here. Franznik trying to get down to the inside of the hairpin. Are they going to be able to get away with it? Just barely. Franznik pinched down, and Peterson gets through, is cutting across the grass. Franznik almost loses control of the car. He's back onto the course, and thankfully doesn't hit anything or anyone, but that ambitious move has bit him badly.
Yeah, that was really tough there, and he tried that move. It was almost 3 wide, and it could have ended disastrously for Franznik. Look at this, inside, heading for the hairpin, underneath Cowley. That is minimal space, and he backs out right here, where he makes that slight contact and goes right into the grass. But look at the job, Joe, that he does to save that car. That is not easy to do when you're in the grass. These RSRs do not like that type of surface at all. So props to the save there by Franznik.
Yeah, when we saw that almost exact situation last night, the 2 cars speared into the Armco and had major damage. So back with Chris Pies here in 2nd place. Jesse Lyon still right with him. Chris looks like he's regained some of that lost time to Amram. It's back down to 0.3 of a second now. So I think he's responding a little bit. And they have dropped Justin Sang. Look at the gap now. It's about up to 1.5 seconds down to P4. So the podium have now all pulled away.
And the lap times have been reflective of that, Joe. Sang last time by at a 1:57.3. Your leaders all setting laps at about the 1:56.6s or 7s. Amram a little slower at a 1:56.9, but Sang is starting to fall off quite a bit. And that just shows you now that these top 3 might just have long run pace to just put themselves in their own league and get away from everybody else. And that is really good news for Amram. He's still in the lead, number 1, and number 2, they're dropping off his main championship competitor for that 3rd place in the point standing. So just a double positive here for the 8 car.
Coming down into Cunningham here is actually switching back now to the exit of the hairpin in that large pack. This goes all the way up to 9th place Thomas Briggs currently, and goes all the way back. It looks like you could say it ends around James Huth, but even honestly, Franznik and Patterson are starting to catch up to it. So could say that it goes all the way down to 17th. Just amazing stuff how close together the majority of the field is.
And you can imagine also the amount of pressure for each and every one of these drivers is that if you just make a hiccup, you're a little slow out of a corner, you miss the apex, boom, there's a car right behind you ready to take that position away. So it's really tough, and these are critical points for a lot of these guys. So you can imagine that they're just kind of in that rain and just waiting, but also just with that pressure in mind. There was a car in the grass that was Mark Nister, and then you look at Chris Pais, Jesse Lyon still catching up to Rafael Amarim, and boy, these 3 have been almost pretty much mirror images on pace. They have been all clustered together, and while Lyon does fall back a little bit out of Sunset Bend, and these drivers are way too close, and there may be contact if somebody makes a mistake, but a great turn 1 by Pais might set him up nicely here for turn 2, going for the hairpin.
I think that's the key word, if someone makes a mistake. So far, this has looked very clean. We saw a little slide out of Amarim, but since then, I haven't seen them have major hiccups out there. So crossing fingers, toes, and eyes that they can manage to keep that up, and that it all comes down to just a hard-won battle and not somebody throwing it off the track here. Nobody sticks their nose in down to the hairpin this time between the 3 of them. I wonder, though, if Pies and Lyon are having a little bit of an advantage over Raphael, because even though it looks like they're all kind of pushing as hard as they can, I imagine they got to be saving at least a little bit of fuel behind that 8 car.
They probably are. And down these long straightaways, I mean, the Ullman straight is a really good example. The front straightaway is a really good example. Big bend toward the hairpin. You could save a lot of fuel there hanging behind the driver. They probably are. And I can imagine with the pace that they have caught up to Amarim with, they probably aren't going 150%, Joe. They are just kind of hanging back where they are. They're happy to be behind Amarim, right behind him, in fact, but not content to go by him and go for a pass. Because if it ends up pulling the strategy in the right way for them, if they stay behind them, then that's what they're going to do. And here down the Ullman Straight, it's a proper example. A really long straightaway going up to Sunset Bend. A lot of opportunities to not be 100% throttle, save a bit of fuel.
Does look like Lyon's getting a lot closer to Chris here, but I'm not seeing him make any attempts quite yet. And this will probably be really informative if he does continue to just sit behind that car, even when he gets as close as he's been, because then he absolutely is saving fuel behind him if he's just lifting and coasting in places where he could try and go on the attack. Didn't have the best run there out of Sunset Bend, though, so maybe we won't be able to tell, at least for now. We tick off into lap 8 and still have about 3/4 of this race to go. We're not even into the opening of the pit window.
No, we are not. And the field has thinned out drastically. Here's Leif Peterson inside on Ryan Cowley for 10th, turn 1. Really close between the two. And now here comes Mark Nistor into the picture. The 95 Lightning McQueen paint scheme. We're talking about the cursed nature of the paint scheme going into the race. There's the smile off the 5 car, looking onwards to Peterson. Almost had that pass, but backed out at the last second. There it is.
I mean, the headlights make it feel like something out of Stephen King's It. That's the deadlights or something right there.
That is scary. If I see that in the rearview mirror, I think I'm going to overshoot the next corner, because that is nightmare fuel right there. I wonder if he did that on purpose. I'm not sure whether he did, but even if he did it, it's still working.
Absolutely. By the way, big shout out to everybody who is at the Porsche Parade watching. Glad to have you here with us. Hope you're enjoying your time out in Palm Springs. But right now, these drivers enjoying this last race of Series 10 here in the Pro class. And we come back up towards the front of the pack between Amarim Pies and Lion. They have really dropped Sang at this point. It's down to 3 seconds now that he is behind this group. It really is a breakaway.
But they also might drop Jesse Lyon. You saw that mistake. He caught the grass coming off the Le Mans corner, going for the Ullman straight. Look at the distance now. 0.7 of a second between that second place and third place cars. So maybe Lyon is starting to fall off quite a bit. And that's a poor exit out of Sunset Bend. Washed up really wide out of that turn as Ryan Cowley, I think, Joe, has encountered some trouble. Our biggest mover up until now has become the biggest dropper, and that was off the same corner that Lyon got into the grass. But Cowley faced a poorer fate. Watch this.
Looks like it was even before he got into Le Mans there on the entry. He was all squirrely and then was playing catch up since then. Whoa, very close moment with the inside wall.
And he almost got it there. He thinks his lucky stars that he didn't get any wing damage or any bumper damage off of that. This is from the front end of Nick Melorano. A good look at what happens to Cowley here. He's dropped to 17th. Oh, man, that's really tough. I mean, we talked about Franz Nick's effort to save the car off of the hairpin. You got to give the same amount of credit to Ryan Cowley for saving that car and not pointing it to that inside wall. So Cowley does a great job of saving it, but the biggest point to make is that Cowley has really dropped off 17th, and that's really going to be tough mentally for him after all the progress that he made over the first couple of laps.
Back to Patty Patterson here, 16th, towards the tail end of that pack that just doesn't seem to want to go away. Franznick is the one in front of him, but as you just mentioned, James kind of had his own little error earlier, so maybe he's not so much under attack as on a recovery drive of his own. But next up for him is going to be James Huth, currently in that 14th position. And he's got a little ground to make up before he can really get an attack on that number 12 machine. As they exit out of Tower Corner, I don't see anything good out of Franznick there. He looks a little bit too far back, so he switched to the view of James Huth now, who's very, very close to Nick Melorano, but can't do anything into Jean Debienne.
And now coming out of Le Mans, looks like he does not have the run and the momentum to catch up to Melorano, because on the Ullman straight, if he had a great run out of Le Mans, that's an opportunity to make a pass, but it just looks like it's not in the cards there. Nistor, by the way, has been challenging on Leif Peterson, and coming out of Sunset Bend, you'll see these two come out of the final corner and grace the start-finish line. Here they are. Nistor has really picked up the pace, Joe Peak, on this 913 car. He's been looking at a pass. The last couple of laps, it's just been a matter of where he's been trying to get at the 913. It really has not been successful, but if he continues to give those warning signs, Peterson might give way, and out of turn 1, just a little bit of a wide exit by Peterson. Caught the grass, it drops him off just a tad, and here comes Gregorano into the picture.
Hasn't been able to shake that 913 yet. He still stays on the racing line, but yeah, Gregorano looks like he's trying to capitalize as he approaches on Mark Nistor. Don't think he's close enough for a pass down here into the hairpin. But that is a popular place to make it happen, as he does get Mark to go a little wide, outbraked himself down into that right-hander, and that just about gave up a position.
And that might be what you have to do with the minimal passing opportunities here at Sebring Raceway. You probably just want to mentally fake the driver in front of you, make them feel that pressure, make them a little bit intimidated, and then you can make a pass at that point. I said then too many times, but you know what I mean. I was trying to emphasize my point. If you try to play those mental games, force them into an error, then you've got that spot made without really having to do all that much work. So Greg Arado is performing that as we speak, pressuring Nistor, making him think a little bit too much about his entrances and his exits. Greg Arado could take advantage.
That was a big lift right there from Lyon. It looked like he had the speed, but decided not to do anything with Chris Pies. He's going to sit and wait patiently. And again, every little lift like that saves him that much more fuel. He could have a quicker stop and leapfrog Chris Pies without having to actually pass him on the track. They are into the pit window now this next time by. So if they want to, they could pit in, but I don't anticipate these leaders will be pitting here early, as most drivers tend to wait at least until halfway to try and take their fuel, as they now come out of turn 5 and into Big Bend. Once again, Jesse Lyon is crawling all over the back of Pies.
But it's all about whether he can make that move, and so far he has not been able to. But I'm not sure if he even wants to, Joe. I don't think he's really desperate to get by this 14 car. He's really okay with staying back there and just holding his own inside the top 3 as long as he can finish there. And with this qualifying effort, he should be okay. And he's probably confident enough in his ability that if he stays where he's at, he should lock up the championship for this class this year. So Lyon is still being behind Pies and has really picked up the pace way faster the last lap, by the way. Almost a full half second of a difference between those two. But he's just electing not to go for it, which is the most interesting part about it.
I know every series is going to be important in terms of if you can claim a championship or not, Kenneth, but I feel like Jesse should be just that little bit extra proud if he comes home with it, because Series 10 was all different types of cars, a wide variety of tracks, and I feel like it's always a little bit more impressive when you have so much variety, because there are specialists out there, and that is very impressive in its own right. But when you can stick a driver in anything and they're fast, that to me is a sign of true skill.
Oh yeah, 100%. If you put them in different challenges and they still find a way to succeed, that means they just have, number one, unbelievable skill, but number 2, a desire to win, a desire to perform well, and that mentality pushes them forward. And Lyon has faced a lot this season in Series 10. I mean, I immediately look back to the race at Spa-Francorchamps where he had a crash in the first chicane after Rouge and then had to drop all the way to the back of the field, but kept his spirit in there and came all the way back to a top 5 finish after being dead last for a while in the early stint. And that shows you just how good Lyon is, number 1, but number 2, how relentless he is. So put him in any type of combo. He's been fast, has been consistent, has made the most of each and every race, and that's what probably is a deserving championship run for driver 115.
Still just hanging out there, looks pretty content. And since nothing is happening here, it looks like it's going to be happening pretty soon. What if we could give a look at Chris Braun? Because he's been chipping away at Justin Sang. He hasn't successfully outpaced him every lap, but overall, he is cutting down. It's down to 1.3 seconds. And remember, Justin kind of fell off of that front pack. So Chris has been stuck in no man's land here, but this sight of the 188 in front of him is probably incredibly welcome, because he might have a fight on his hand if he can keep this up.
Yeah, when you see a car in front of you, when you spend a good amount of the race all by yourself, it adds a little bit of motivation. You have a target to chase, somebody to reference your laps off of, and if you're faster than them, it just gives you that bit of a boost, right? You're just behind the wheel, you're like, hey, I'm faster than this guy. Look how many corners I can go around faster than this guy, and I'll catch him, I'll make that pass. So there's a lot of motivation here for Chris Braun to make that attempt at Justin Sang, and there's a look off the rear wing of the Golden Gate region driver who, I mean, you talked about it, Joe, when we mentioned it ad nauseum, how far he fell back from the top 3, just all by himself now. and he just might be at the clutches of Braun if he gets a little too complacent at 188.
I'm sorry, was there a race going on? I saw a cute dog sleeping, and I had completely lost track of everything else. So, very serene scene there for Justin saying, let's hope he can keep it serene as he raises. Oh, Mark Nistor in. Okay. Now, did he get some sort of damage? I'm not seeing any on the car. This looks like it is a legitimate strategy call from him, and very, very early.
It is early, but it's not surprising. I've seen this before. We've seen it before in this pro class where Nistor has taken really early undercut stops, and somehow it has found a way to work. I can immediately remember Interlagos where he pitted the first out of everyone in the field and still gained a lot of positions. Sure, he was back in the field at the first pit stop at that moment, but as soon as everyone cycled through and came in, that's where he made his money. And so it's not surprising that I see Nistor pitting at this time, but it is rather interesting to see if Nistor is going to cue anyone else to come in at lap 13, or whether everyone's just going to say, well, that's nonsense, we're going to go in later.
Yeah, he does have clear track. He comes out without anybody around, honestly. Yeah, pretty much the entire field is all still separated by about half a minute between Amorim and Green, and then you've got Nistor as the outlier, having just pitted. Nicky Chan, though, in the middle of all this, is seeing if he could try and face off with Facciolo. That's for the 7th position, but he's also got to worry about Leif Peterson in behind him. And this is the battle of the day glow colors. Look at Nicky Chan versus Facciolo here, but he gets a poor exit off of Le Mans, so that's not going to do it for now. Leif Peterson still hangs out back there in 9th.
And he said day glow. These might be just glow in the dark cars by the time this race is over. Really bright cars. And here is a good entrance to Sunset Bend for Nicky Chan. That's going to get to the inside, but Chan is coming in. So I talked about whether Nistor's stop was going to cue anyone else in. It looks like it caught the attention of the 000, so Nicky Chan all by himself in for service.
And he was in the midst of a battle too, so maybe he thought, you know, I am just going to lose ground here as Peterson's going to look to the inside, coming down into turn 3, the outside rather, and he's going to make it stick. That was impressive stuff. Going a long way past Nick Facciolo. Thomas Briggs says, if you can do it, I can do it as well. And he gets a magnificent run coming off of turn 5. He'll get the toe, but it looks like this time Facciolo is going to defend and try to cover him off. He leaves the door open just a little bit, but as they come back to the racing line, no change of positions.
And Briggs tried that crossover. Got to give props on that straightaway. He was trying to fake Facciolo out. But although Facciolo did leave the space, Briggs braked a little bit earlier, but that's a battle worth watching. Those 3, Peterson, Facciolo, and Briggs, might just be the highlight of the night if we don't see anything change between this top 3 that have stayed content with riding around with each other and not affecting the outcome all too much. Now, I wonder how long Amorim is going to stay out here, Joe, whether he's going to go as long as he possibly can because he's so far ahead of points competitor Justin Sang, or whether he's going to be earlier than the 2 fighting for the championship behind him. It's going to be rather interesting to see what they do as we approach the last 30 minutes of tonight's race from Sebring. They'll come out of Sunset Bend, and still all 3 of them at around the same pace, nobody ducking for pit road. And boy, these 3 have been in a league of their own so fast tonight.
Yeah, the gap back to Sang is now up to 6 seconds. By the way, Nicky Chan, after his pit stop, did come out ahead of Nistor by about 1.5 seconds. Now, I don't know what that gap was before. It's a little bit of dirt kicked up there by Amorim coming out of turn 1. Got to be careful of that. That is a very fast corner where things can go awry. Speaking of going awry, it seems like Facciolo just can't seem to get away from drivers attacking him. It's going to be Briggs around the outside of turn 1, and he doesn't have it completely done quite yet. Now he slides in front, and he's going to cover off the inside as Facciolo tries to take the fight back to him, but gets fed out.
That was tight there between those 2, and now they've invited Enrico Gregorato as here's another car to come in, the 39 of James Franznick. And we've seen, Joe, every time a driver comes in, they are not bringing others with them. It is all single car pit stops as you get the look off of the 771, the Pacific Northwest region driver, into the hairpin. And as the battle heats up between Briggs and Facciolo, Joe Peak, I think we're starting to find a train getting built up here, because look at Melorano and Huth not that far behind.
Franznik had a very long stop, 30 seconds. I did notice that he took tires. I'm not entirely sure what happened, if it was just the tires or what, but either case, he is now out last on the field.
And he just pulled off.
Yeah.
Just pulled off out of turn one, came out of the pit road exit, and it looked okay, and then just hopped on the brakes. So I'm not sure what happened to Franznik there.
And he's retired, so something that we aren't aware of must have happened behind the scenes, because I couldn't find any sort of incident out on the track, so something must have made him decide it was better if he just parked it for now. Meanwhile, back up to the top three, Amorim, Pies, line. That's your podium in order from first to third as they plug away, and the sun continues to set with its beautiful orange and yellow hues here in Florida. And these drivers have no time to take in the scenery. Ultimate focus right now, 100% for all three of them, having to really try and keep their eyes on the road. Meanwhile, let's go to Nick Melorano, who is going to get a spot from James Huth because he just pitted in. So that's our latest.
Yeah, Huth is in also all by himself, and Melorano trying to take a bite out of Gregorato here for the entrance into the top 10. As there's Huth all by himself on the lane. We'll see how long that stop is. Hopefully he doesn't suffer any issues, and it's not that long of a stop. It's still counting, and we'll see what the exact marker is when he comes out. But this has been outstanding to watch, and as Huth drops out of his pit stall, it's 14.9 seconds, one of the fastest we've seen all night long. But this is fun to watch. Gregorato, Melorano, and now Facciolo. As Facciolo really under pressure at this stage, starting to fall off a bit.
So Huth comes out behind both Nistor and Chan. Chan is still our highest pitter so far. But, yeah, it's been very close here in the mid-pack, where at one point we had cars almost 11 deep, all vying for a top 10 position. Now it's been dwindled down somewhat by the pit stops and just by these separating as Facciolo goes a little too wide off the tower. That's going to open the door. Gregorato and Melorano both fly through.
And will that make Facciolo come in this time by, because he's losing so many spots? It could open that door up. And oftentimes, Joe, we've seen when drivers start to struggle, they throw in the towel for strategy and they say, all right, I'm going to come in. I'm going to try and change my race up if I'm losing so much track position. Look how close Jesse Lyon is before turn one to Chris Price, and Amorim is way off the circuit, turn one.
First time we've seen a mistake of that caliber from Rafael Amorim, and that puts Chris Pies into the lead, but it also puts Jesse Lyon into second. And as I said, from what we can tell, second place or better will clinch for Jesse.
So he's in the best spot possible. He saw Amorim just let these two by on that one mistake and knows he's in that comfortable spot for the championship. We'll take a look at the replay, and this is what happened to Amorim. He's been mistake-free all night long, apart from that one corner where he went sideways. But here, turn one,
just snapped on it, looked like.
Yeah. Very bumpy in turn one. I mean, very bumpy everywhere here at Sebring, but turn one, characteristically bumpy. And here, a look from Amorim as he drops down the gears, top of fifth, right there at sixth. I think as soon as he hit fifth gear, that car dropped out of shape. And that's where he had to save it, and he was in full damage control mode, just making sure he didn't get into the grass. Great job by not getting into the grass or any of the barriers, but that's drop track position right there, down to third.
Indeed. So now he's got to try and drive it a little bit differently, because it's the first time since the start of this race that he'll be in the dirty air. Melorano, by the way, had his pit stop. He came out behind Nistor into 16th. So now 4 drivers have completed pit stops, at least that have continued on. We do have a DNF in Franznik. We're not sure why he has had to exit this race. Back watching the front now with Pies in the lead. Lyon following. Will someone of them try to pit in as we're now past the halfway point? No, all 3 will carry on. Almost wonder if Amorim should have maybe considered trying to come in and try and undercut those 2.
Probably, but I figure that he knows how much pace he has behind his RSR. He probably understands that he can get by these two with enough effort, even with that turn one mistake. So I think he's just waiting it out and seeing what's going to happen. And if he does not gain those positions, then he'll probably take action at that point. What I've noticed here over the last couple of laps through this race is that Pais has been better in that second sector than Jesse Lyon, especially off of Sunset Bend. That 14 can really pull away from Lyon off that last corner. That's a really pivotal one that you have to make quick. As here's Nick Facciolo on pit road, questioning how long it was going to take before he came in. He's by himself at this point, dropped to 13th.
Yeah, I remember he had that off not long ago, so maybe the tires struggling a little bit for Nick Facciolo. Yes, it's a little bit cool out there, but these drivers have been running an incredible pace, so I wouldn't doubt that a few of them have used up their stuff a little bit here. And Facciolo will emerge 15th behind Shannon Nistor. Nope, looks like he's going to lose out to Melorano just barely. That was very, very tight, but it looks like he will slide into 16th.
That was almost a fatal bit of contact between those two. Facciolo coming right out of pit road. That's a dangerous exit here at Sebring, and it's one that you can often overlook. You'll see it here as Facciolo comes out of pit lane. You enter turn one, so you're going to try to make the arc, and you have to make sure that the drivers around you are not going through that corner as well, so you don't make contact. But as Facciolo comes out, he's going to meet Melorano right at the exit near the blue and white curbing on the outside, almost forced Facciolo into the grass.
Yeah, so here's the perspective from Nick. Melorano, I guess I need to specify, they're both named Nick. And, well, watch the right-hand side. He stayed cognizant of the exiting car. You always got to try and be careful of that. Gave him enough space, like you said. There he is. And just gets through. Oh, actually, did they make some contact there?
It looked like they hip checked. I'm not sure, but really close nonetheless. And then that brought in James Huth in the 12, so I don't think it made things any better. Better overlook here.
No contact. Just trick of the cameras.
But Facciolo did back out, though. He did back out.
Yeah. Probably a wise decision in that situation, honestly. So now we are waiting for 12 cars to still take their pit stop. And I think we've only got about 2 laps before they should reach the end of the fuel tanks based on what we witnessed last night. So we'll see if anybody maybe is able to stretch it that little bit longer or not. Pai's trying to go out on a high note, even if he doesn't take the championship. He's keeping Jesse Lyon behind, or is this Jesse Lyon allowing him to keep the lead?
I'm not entirely sure, but regardless, Pais, even if he doesn't win the championship, winning this last race in the send-off for the RSR to close out Series 10 would be monumental for what's going to be the next season of PCA Sim Racing and further beyond in this pro class. And we'll watch here out of Le Mans whether Lyon can catch up to Pais. But I've noticed again, these last couple of corners have favored the 14 car, especially Sunset Bend. And the biggest thing, Joe, that we'll be watching here as they approach lap 20 is, are they going to come down pit road? Lyon with a big run on Pais. Does he strike for Sunset Bend? He will not. He'll try to take a wider arc to make a crossover happen. Sebring gets invited on the inside. Do any of them come in? No, they won't. So an extra lap. They're going to go all the way here.
All the way to the end of the fuel, we believe. Big run once again from Lyon. No, he still doesn't make the move. Surely on this lap, if they're pitting at the end of it, we'll often see drivers, Kenneth, who will try and get that track position before they pit in. I have to think that if Jesse Lyon is sitting waiting to pounce, now would be the time.
Yeah, now would be the time for sure. Gain that track position, set yourself up right for strategy, and boom, bam, bop. You're right there from then on out. But Lyon is just holding back. I think he's picking and choosing. He doesn't want to trash his race over a move that he will regret at some point. He wants to make sure he does this move safely if it happens, but he's not going to rush it. He's just going to let the universe tell him what the deal is, and he's going to try and make the most out of that situation. As we did hear that Mark Nistor has just dropped out with a packet loss connectivity issue. That is huge for the 5 car. May gain so much of the position by undercutting the field drastically. And now it looks like he is out of this race as another car just hit pit road. That's Dale Green in the 250.
For the layman, Nister's internet basically crapped out on him. So the 5, unfortunately, could still finish this race and log back in, but he's going to be many laps down. That's a real shame for him. Cowley and Green finished with their stops, and they go to the back of the field. Nicky Chan picking up spots bit by bit as the highest pitter. He's up to 11th now, and he'll probably have at least 2 or 3 more positions once the pits cycle through. It's a question of how high will he go. Meanwhile, getting very close, and still Jesse Lyon does not try and overtake. Has he saved maybe an entire lap of fuel? Can he go for an extra one here past Pies? Neither comes in, so both of them phenomenal on the fuel mileage, but not so for Amarim, who has been pushing the air for the pair of them. The 8 will take his stop.
And so will the 188 behind him, Justin Sang, and also bring in the 258 of Chris Braun. So 8's all around the board. The only car to break that train is the 7 of Logan Grotto. So this is the most amount of cars, Joe, that we're seeing make that 5 and 6. So everyone almost coming in one fell swoop. They're going to bring Greg Grotto, Thomas Briggs, Leif Peterson. This is a huge batch of cars. And so as they come in, lap 21, 10 laps to go, how will that cue the top 2? As there's Amarim coming out.
Yep, and this is telling to me. We know that
spinner! Chris Pice is around from the lead. Off of the hairpin.
After all that hard work, and I think he did this to himself. I don't think there was contact from what I can see. So the 14 has made a critical error. Jesse Lyon is now far, far ahead of him, and surely Amarim has also jumped him during these pit stops here. So here is the incident. Watch the white, green, and black car around the right-hander. Too much curb.
Yeah, and got the grass a little bit there. What the sand is, it's a game of inches there, Joe, when you're trying to get the curbing while not getting the grass enough to unsettle the car. And that's such a small mistake. That is the right rear of the race car. Pivotal part to catch the grass in, because that immediately is going to loop the car around no matter what you try and do. So for Pice, that is a huge dagger in the back for him. Look at the gap, 7.5 seconds. Just a little bit disappointed off of that. You see him shaking his head. But question is he going to come for pit road now? Lyon off of the end of Sunset Bend. He pulls off to the right. He's in. Does the 14 do anything different?
I don't think he can go much longer than this. And yep, there he goes. He's in pit lane now. As I was saying before, Amarim pitting is very telling here, because he was pushing the air for the vast majority of that time. Lyon was at the very back of it for most of that time. He probably saved the most fuel. I anticipate a very short stop from the 115. I think he's sitting in the catbird seat.
Only time will tell. At around 10 seconds on that stop, and he's already hit the rev, so he's going to come out 13.9 seconds. Joe, that's the fastest out of anyone we've seen tonight. Easily quickest. Oh, Chris Pies did a 13.5 though. And Amarim is, Amarim's ahead of him. How in the world did he get back out ahead of Jesse Lyon? Just a pure undercut. And a great pit stop. It was 14.3 seconds. Not as good as Lyon or Pies, but distance and track position gets Amarim the upper hand. And this is off turn 1, the exit of pit road. And Amarim is just running his race. He sees those cars right there, but that's a jump of the ages. Amarim back to the lead, but Lyon has the opportunity to catch back up, which is very dangerous.
That had to have been one incredible outlap for Amarim.
Yeah.
That he was able to, well, a couple of outlaps, I should say, that he was able to jump Jesse Lyon, considering Jesse was half a second faster in his pit stall. Just amazing stuff here. Amarim is back on the table as a potential winner. Remember, he did start this one on pole position.
Well, I mean, no doubt about it. Even after the mistake in turn 1, Amarim has been one of the fastest, if not the fastest car of the entire field. It's now just a matter of can he hold it with the strategy that he has employed. Pies seems to be way off the marker, 7.5 seconds off of second, 8.5 seconds off of the leader. So I think the 14 car might be closed out of the conversation of the win. As there's Justin saying he might have something to say about that last spot in the podium. But for Amram, a hell of a run out of the pit lane and a hell of a couple of laps to get in the lead. But it's half a second. This race is not over yet. 16 and a half minutes remaining.
And as long as Lyon is in front of Pais, that's it. That's championship over. So all Jesse has to do is bring it home. He doesn't even need to beat Amram. And that's the question here, too. Does he want to try and finish this on a victory? Does he dare fight Amram and risk the car? Or does he just bring it home knowing that he's got it sealed up? Pais as well back there fighting with Justin Sang. That could be interesting, with Justin likely going to try and get himself onto the podium. But we've seen already that Jesse is a big picture driver. He waited all that time sitting so patiently behind Chris. Surely he can wait patiently behind Raphael here as well to bring it home for the championship.
It's what I said a little earlier, Joe, that Lyon is playing this game of I will let the universe tell me what's going on and I will make the most of the situation. I'm not going to force anything. I'm not going to try and manifest anything insanely. I'm going to let things roll as it goes. And if the chips fall in my favor, then so be it. But Lyon's approach to this is the most conservative that I've seen out of most of the drivers in this field. And that obviously is probably going to get in the championship as long as he avoids any major mistakes. We're seeing a nice battle build up at around the back half of the top 10 and just a bit outside of it. These are the outskirts, so 12th and 13th. Facciolo in the 717, the 12 of James Youth. Really tight between these two heading into a heartbreaking zone. Facciolo, though, playing some nice defense, and Nick Malorano not far off the picture either, but Facciolo way wide. He's going to stay where he's at, though.
Outbraked himself a little bit there into Cunningham, but Huth not able to capitalize. Yeah, this has been interesting, actually, because Facciolo's not been having a great race. He's down 5 positions from the start. Huth is exactly where he began, but in front of them, there's 3 drivers that are sharing the hardest charger right now. Melorano, Gregorato, and Peterson are all up 4 from the start, which I'm not too shocked that hard chargers have numbers so low, because once you get to the pro class here in PCA, it's very hard to find an edge.
It really is. We've seen this field be so even on many different occasions. And while we've seen the drivers at the top perform the best, obviously, the Jesse Lyons, the Chris Paises, the Justin Sangs, all these guys, even in the midfield, they have been back and forth week in and week out, no matter what track we visit. Each of these guys has a way to get around the other and have a really decent fight. Now, James Youth is not really in concern for the championship. He is 23rd, and he has missed the last couple of races. He was there at Watkins Glen, but he's not been there all too much throughout the campaign. Facciolo, on the other hand, has been around for pretty much every single race, and yet these two are some of the closest on the racetrack as it rolls through 412.
Down towards the hairpin once again, where drivers have been trying to make moves, but we haven't seen many passes into there tonight. Bit of a surprise, but like I said, it is hard to try and catch someone out here in the pro class, so maybe that would explain why we're not seeing many drivers managing to do that. Logan Grotto here is also where he started this race in 6th place, but the significant thing about him is he has not had any incidents yet this race. Remember, we were talking earlier in the opening of our show that there's a $250 merchandise gift certificate for Six Sigma Sim Racing for the driver with the fewest incident points and license penalty points in their class. So hence why these drivers do need to watch out for how many they've had over the course of the season.
Yeah, that $250 gift certificate is really fun to have, and you can have a little bit of bragging rights for the next season. You got a little award at the end of the campaign, so that's also a lot of fun to have. And even if you're not in contention for the championship, you get a little reward that obviously feels good no matter what the situation is. As we'll watch this battle building up still. And there is the look back at your 2 leaders, Rafael Amarim and Jesse Lyon. Now, this gap is, again, maintained at around half a second to 0.6 of a second, but that's mostly because of Lyon's approach to this race. Really has not done all too much to force Amarim into problems or make him do anything he doesn't want to do. He's just been riding around where he's at. And we're down to the last 11 and a half minutes, so it comes back to that debate mentally for Lion Joe, whether he's willing to risk it for the race win, close out the season with a bang, or just hold on a second, knowing where he's at in the points, and just hold on to the championship.
Yeah, I was taking a quick look to see where that clean driver sits, and Pies and Patterson came into this tied at 12 incidents for the season in its entirety.
Wow.
So averaging, considering, well, for Chris, he missed one race at Interlagos, so he's averaged 2 incidents per race there. It's a little less with Patterson since he went to all 7, so less than 2 per race on average, all Series 10 long. Patterson has taken 1, and Pies has taken 1, from what I'm understanding. Although, did Pies actually spin, or did he just have an off track there when he lost the lead?
Well, Pies, I believe it was just an off track, because if you have the loss of control, that's a 2x.
Yeah.
So I think it was just the off track that he picked up from the spin, and that was it.
But that's what I was trying to figure out. So, sometimes the reports can be off, depending. So if he had a spin and it for some reason didn't count, I wondered if maybe we were getting a wrong reading there. But it sounds like it is indeed accurate, and he's still tied with Patterson up at the top of the field, which should, I believe, go to Patterson since he went to more races, or at least if you ask me, I think it should, since his average is better on that. I don't know what the actual rules are. We'll see if the stewards know what a tiebreaker will be. We're getting information. Clean driver has 2 drops, so that will be interesting there as well. Meanwhile, Amram versus Lion here. Amram has not allowed Jesse to get close enough in these last 10 minutes. He's been keeping him at arm's length. We'll see if Jesse can respond, if he is once again playing possum on us and just kind of letting the race come to him and trying to fight later, or is he doing as we said earlier and just deciding second place is good enough?
It's a question mark that we've been trying to figure out for most of the night, but I've been watching these lap times and they're rather seesawing between these two. Sometimes Amram is a little faster, sometimes Lion is a little bit faster. There's not really a consistent driver that is the best lap by a lap. They seem to be trading it off as the race progresses forward. I mean, that last time by, Lion was way slower, 156.98. Amram faster, 156.729. But then you look a couple of laps back where Lion had a 156.819, and for Amram, it was around the same, if not just a little bit faster. I mean, these guys have been back and forth for it, as James Hughes still looks on for Nick Paciolo, but I'd say that has really opened up, so it's going to hope that the 717 finds himself in some peril, or at least that he can gain a lot of track position, or in terms of time, in these last couple of laps.
Well, hopefully he has some peril-sensitive glasses that he can put on, and that will help protect him in any of those perilous situations. Meanwhile, down the backstretch into Sunset Bend once again, a whole string of cars in the mid-pack. Not as close as we saw early in the race, but still kind of equidistant apart. Being led by Nicky Chan currently in the 000, sitting in 8th place. Everybody's trying to play catch-up. Here we see from on board him, you can barely see the car behind, even though it's only, 1.6 seconds back there to Thomas Briggs. So unfortunately, everybody's just been so on it today in this group that they can't seem to get close enough to one another.
But how about the strategy, Joe, by Nicky Chan? Started this race in 8th, had been hanging around here for most of the race, and pitted earlier than everyone else around him. It is a full, I'd call it, 7-lap difference between himself and everyone around. Briggs pitted 6 laps ago, Gregorado 6 laps ago, and then you look at Leif Peterson 6 laps ago, Grotto 6 laps ago. Everybody ahead mostly 6 laps ago, while Chan is running on lap 13 on the stint. So Chan has been on it on that undercut. It's just a matter of whether he can hold on to it. It was pretty much right after Mark Nistor came down and became the first driver to hit pit road all night long. So Chan, with a great undercut strategy, working out for him nicely.
I mean, I would not want to bet against the physicist when it comes to trying to do math and strategy. So Nicky Chan finding the upper hand and outrunning everybody, not necessarily as much on the track, but just through the pit lane. Whoa! And away goes Thomas Briggs. Can he keep from getting hit here? He's almost in the racing line. That was mighty close between himself and Nick Melorano. It looks like he'll get the car rolling, but that was costly. You saw how many cars flew by him.
And here's the mistake. This is off of Bishop, and you're going on to Gendebien, and just loses it. And this is similar to what we saw with Amarim. It just obviously works because he goes around. Amarim was able to save the car, but as soon as you drop it into 5th gear or 4th gear, revs are so high, car steps out, rear end doesn't agree with the inputs on the steering wheel, and around it goes for a loop. And Briggs just got caught up at the worst moment there at that point and just officially goes around. It was really tough for him. And that's the first mistake, I think, Joe Peak, that we've seen at that part of the track all evening long. So it's starting to strike out at many different parts of the surface.
I always thought that Gendebien was a rather unassumingly difficult corner. So I'm not too shocked that somebody found themselves get surprised by it here. And there you can see the sparse 16 that are left on the track, not even close to have to worry about being lapped. Dale Green currently the last on the field right now in the 250, where the 8 is your leader there for Rafael Amarim. As you can see, the lights now flooding what few parts of the track that they do here at Sebring, but valuable to these drivers to have that extra little bit to help guide the way. Justin Sang has made sure that Chris Pies cannot rest on his laurels. He had his mistake earlier that put him back into 3rd, and Sang says, you do one more of those, I'm going to take that podium away from you.
It was funny to see Sang off of that corner, just had a huge exhale, and then the dog is just asleep, not even knowing that Sang is going to have the greatest battle of his life right now against Chris Paes in the last race of this Pro Class Series 10 season. Looking in the mirror just to check, but really has been catching up, and that lap was big for Sang. 156.9, Pies with a 157.1. So Justin is on his way. He's only got a couple of minutes left, so he's starting to push up the pace a little bit. Oh, and that's a loose moment out of turn 2.
Got to watch out for those. It's late in the race. Most drivers didn't take tires here, so they are probably feeling them pretty worn out at this stage. It's down to only 78 Fahrenheit, so only about 2 degrees lower than what it started as in today's race. So we saw similar lack of change last night in the track temperature despite the sun going down. So interesting that both times it stayed pretty consistent, and while not hot, this track has some fast corners that could certainly chew them up. Melorano is up 5 now since the start. Gregorato there in front of him also up 5, and they are trying to chase down Nicky Chan in front of them. Nicky withstood the pressure from Briggs, made Briggs blink first. Can he do the same with these two? Oh, Facciolo's off. Facciolo is in the wall. That might be the first car we've seen actually hit the wall tonight in this class.
Yeah, we've seen all the cars get into trouble, just either get into the grass or go for a spin, but they don't suffer damage. That's heavy wing damage for Facciolo's machine, and this is off of the hairpin, so similar place to where Pies went for a spin, but catches the grass. I mean, again, we talk about the lack of runoff here at Sebring, especially in this first sector. You cannot afford to get those tires in the grass because your line is going to be severely altered, and for Facciolo, that was the worst part, to catch that car at that part of the grass. And there's the wing damage on the right side, just bent downwards. That's going to hurt dearly.
Just got greedy, unfortunately, taking a little bit too much of it off the corner, trying to straight line it. 2 laps to go, by the way. Amarim crossed the line with about 2.5 minutes left on the clock. Gregorato here now with Melorano behind him. Wasn't that flipped around? No, I guess it was that way before because they're still both at 5. But Gregorato looking back off at Nick Melorano is now sandwiched because he's approaching Nicky Chan, and surely he wants that position, but he's got to play defense as well if Melorano continues to encroach upon him.
That's the toughest position, I'd say, as a driver, is when you're trying to play both offense and defense at the same time, and you have to try and focus on one. It looks like for Greg Arado, his main focus is getting to Nicky Chan, because that was a better exit off of that corner, heading into Big Bend, and now for the hairpin. He's pulled the distance on Melorano, so he's not as focused on that rear view mirror, but he does catch the grass a little bit there and unsettled the car, but saved it before things could get a little bit too troublesome. And he's going to try his best to get the champ, but I wonder when Greg Arado is going to strike if he gets close enough. What corner is he going to bite? He's looking at the inside there, going into Cunningham. I guess trying to throw Nicky Chan off his game, but it hasn't worked yet.
No, it has not. But one thing that has worked is Rafael Amorim's speed and strategy, because he's getting ready to take the white flag with a handy 3-second gap over Jesse Lyon. I wonder if Jesse cut that fuel just a little too close back there or something, because earlier he seemed to be able to easily keep up with Amorim, and now suddenly he's just falling away.
Might also just be a case of the tires, of spending so much time in Amorim's dirty air that he probably had to work a little harder than he wanted to. But nonetheless, Lyon really has nothing to worry about. He has such a big distance to Chris Pies that, I mean, he's seeing the 8-car run away, but he is staring at the sunset with smiles only on his face. He knows that championship is going to go to him no matter what, as the timer ticks down. Final 15 seconds as Amorim hits the hairpin for one more time.
Oh, we need a replay on Melorano on the 117. He was trying his heart out to pass Greg Arado out of Sunset Bend, just about bend the car into the wall on the exit. So let's take a quick glance here. You can see him diving back and forth. The Dunkin' Donuts car tries to come in wide, maybe to look for the cutback, but he does not calculate it right. Woof, that was close.
Those are the tire barriers ready to greet you if you overshoot that corner, and he kicked the rear end out and almost then had a meeting with the inside wall for the pit lane. Melorano with a great job to save the car, but that battle's not done yet. Melorano is there in striking distance as Amorim comes into the final couple of corners, into Le Mans for the last time, down the Omen Straight and to the Sunset Bend. Joe Peak for the win.
Indeed, and I need to double check. This might be his first victory of the season. I can't recall if he won at VIR. That's the only one I can see that has potentially enough points that he may have taken that victory. Regardless, he has withstood the Lion's Den tonight. He has come away smiling because he is going to take the win here at Sebring. Jesse Lyon, second place, is unofficially your champion with that podium this evening. And Chris Pies probably disappointed. You can see the look on his face, knowing that that one has slipped through his grasp. But still, he's going to be second in the points, and he has done a fantastic job here tonight to finish off on a podium. What about Melorano here? It looks like this is going to be tight.
Last attempt off Sunset Bend. He's a little wide off the corner. That's not going to work. Great effort by Melorano, but Greg Arado has the spot. He'll keep ninth. Melorano, though, still with a top 10 on his hands. James Hughes was in striking distance with both of them for a while, but he'll end up 11th. Thomas Briggs, he had that spin going into the Mach corner. He ends up 12th, and the rest of the field starting to slowly trickle to that start-finish line. Very clean race here from Sebring tonight.
Fantastic stuff. Let's now take a quick break. We're not done yet, though. We'll have the unofficial results as well as driver interviews coming your way after this.
if that's going to be the case. He's actually got a nose ahead as they come down into the braking zone. He's going to do it the hard way.
If you're a Porsche owner looking for reliable, convenient service without leaving the comfort of your home or office, look no further and take advantage of the Exchange at Home complimentary pickup and drop-off service exclusively at the Porsche Exchange in Highland Park. At the Porsche Exchange, it's all about creating a legendary ownership experience that embodies our guests' lifestyle. Our Porsche service team utilizes cutting-edge technology that delivers a transparent service visit and keeps us in constant contact with our guests. And I can't think of anyone more qualified to work on your Porsche, new or classic, than our Porsche certified technicians. Whether you're a longtime guest or new to our dealership, I welcome you to experience legendary at the Porsche Exchange.
Welcome back to Sebring. The Pro Class wraps up Series 10 with an incredible nail-biting race as Rafael Amorim winds up your victor ahead of Jesse Lyon. And halfway through this race, I don't think we would have said that was likely. Chris Pies was third behind him as Jesse has clinched the championship unofficially with this P2. Justin Sang was off of it in fourth as Chris Braun was P5. Logan Grotto, sixth for him, was followed by Leif Peterson, up four positions to take seventh. Nicky Chan was eighth, and actually five for Gregor Rotto to finish ninth, as well as for Melorano to finish 10th.
Up two positions, James Huth goes from start to finish, 13th to begin, 11th to end. Thomas Briggs had a spin going to the Le Mans corner and heading for the Ullman straight. He drops off to 12th. Paddy Patterson, 4 places up from where Paddy began in 17, ends up as the 13th car to finish. Ryan Cowley had such great progression early, then had a mistake, dropped back and could not really pick it up, drops back to 14th place. 15th goes to the 717 of Nick Facciolo, suffered a crash coming off of the hairpin corner, caught the grass, hit the outside wall, and damaged the rear wing. 16th will go to the 250 of Dale Green. He results as the last car to finish this race on track. Last one on the lead lap as well. Mark Nistor suffered internet connectivity issues and fell out of the race 13 laps before the end of the event. 17th is where he'll finish, and James Franznik with an early pull-off out of turn 1 after his pit stop is last here from Sebring, Florida.
And that will take us to our winner, Rafael Amorim. Rafael, it looked like you made a little bit of a mistake in turn 1 that gave away the lead. With how tight everything is, we thought, oh, well, race might be over. Jesse Lyon has the undercut. He's been saving fuel. And while we thought he was going to be miles ahead of you, you came back ahead. How did you manage that?
Yeah, I made a little mistake, locked the rears, and in the end was kind of good because I was able to save fuel then. Starting P1 here is sort of a blessing at first because you burn all the fuel and you don't get the toll. So I was kind of, okay, I didn't lose too much time, so I can just sit back and save a little bit. So I think that helped. And I was pushing really hard on the outlap. I think Chris' speeding delay affected Jesse a little bit. Otherwise, I think he would have come out in front. But I guess I got lucky there in the end.
Sometimes they say better late than never. This is finally your first win of Series 10. Are you happy that you at least got one before all was said and done?
Oh, yeah. It was a great race. This combo, Sebring on the RSR is just amazing. So, yeah, this was a great race, a lot of fun.
So this looked like a nail-biting race from our perspective. Did it feel like that from in the inside? Because it felt like you three were just pushing the entire time up at the front.
Oh, yeah. Having Chris and Jesse behind you doesn't make life any easy. It was really hard just trying to keep a decent pace and trying to keep at least a bit of a distance. So, and they were just so fast. So yeah, it was a very intense race throughout. It doesn't show sometimes from the outside, but it was a pretty intense race.
Well, again, congratulations. That was well earned, and you definitely even caught us by surprise up in the booth.
Well, thank you.
Rafael Amorim, your winner here tonight, but your unofficial champion, Jesse Lyon, has been caught by Kenneth Bueno.
Here I am with the driver of the 115, Jesse Lyon. You are unofficially the champion of the Pro Class for Series 10 of PCA Sim Racing as we close out this race here from Sebring. Number one, just walk us through your emotions at this moment and how you were able to get to second tonight.
Well, the last lap in qualifying was what I needed to kind of, make sure that all I had to do was sit behind Pies. So there was a practice race last night, and I learned that he really likes to fuel save, so I just fuel saved the entire time. And up right till the pit stop when he lost it, I I couldn't take like the next 3 corners seriously or like at peak performance because I kept either braking too late or I was just distracted. I didn't really think that I would win that, so I just kept it clean for the rest of it. Didn't really want to fight down Raphael because if I did, I would have probably thrown the car away. So.
And talk about that racing here at Sebring. I mean, very different from, let's say, the last race at Watkins Glen where it's more wide open. You have a lot more space. Did you feel like you were more on pins and needles to execute this championship closing event just because it's Sebring, or was there something else in mind?
Now, this car in Sebring is a really fun combo, but the setup was really hard to pick with because the setup was really stiff for the bumps and the differential was too locked and there was no ability to change traction control, and at the same time it would understeer when you didn't want it to and oversteer when you didn't want it to. So it was just, you had to really play with the throttle more so than the pickup, I feel like, which this car is a lot of fun.
Well, it was a substantially close race between you, Amarim, and Pais. You end up second, and you close out this Pro Class Championship for Series 10. Again, what does this championship mean for you after the season that you've been able to put together all along?
I really wanted to focus on trying to get the season finished because I start my 3rd semester in nursing school next semester, and I'm going to have no time to really drive on the sim at all. So I really wanted to get this win, or else I'd have to wait maybe 2 or more seasons to try and go for a championship again. And it's also my first full season that I did with PCA, and it's fantastic to actually get it. Like it just got me so amped up that I just want it. I didn't think I would.
Well, it's perfect timing, and we got to say on behalf of all of us at Podium Esports, we wish you the best on that semester in nursing school that's coming up as we get on for later this year. But final question before we let you celebrate this Series 10 Pro Class Championship. Anyone that you just want to thank in particular for this championship season that's put together?
Yes, my wife. I'd like to thank my wife a lot. She really started like amping up her support towards the end, and was kind of like my own little cheerleader. I'd like to thank both of my parents, Porsche Exchange, and shout out to everybody who's at the Porsche parade today, and all the guys at Phoenix and Satellite. I'd like to thank them a lot, especially Robbie Prescott, because he's been my close teammate through all this.
Well, a stellar season all around, and here at Sebring is where it closes out. Jesse, congratulations on the second, but most importantly, congratulations on winning the Pro Class Championship for Series 10 of PCA Sim Racing. We'll let you go on and celebrate here from Virtual Sebring. Hopefully we get to see you soon. Congratulations again.
Heck yeah, thank you guys. Thank you for a great broadcast.
So Jesse Lyon puts up a season worth remembering and captures this Pro Class Championship. Joe Peak, we got the driver on the other side of it who finishes 3rd. That is Christopher Pais. You're with him.
Indeed. And Chris, we could see your face as you finished it. It looked like there was a lot of a disappointment there. Were you still holding hope that maybe you could take the championship or at least get the win tonight?
I was definitely fighting for the win. I knew the championship, unless Jesse made a monumental error, was going to be a little bit out of touch, but I just wanted to make it at least a good race. And if I hadn't had my little oopsie there in the hairpin, I think it would have been pretty fun between the top 3. I would have loved to have been in that fight, but hey, it happens. It's racing. I'm just glad I didn't cause too many headaches or cause anybody else to have a problem.
What do you feel caused that spin in that corner? Because it was coming down to the pit stops on that lap. Were the tires finally giving out, or is it concentration, or what?
No, actually, I was driving pretty relaxed there, and that might have been it because I was slowing everything down significantly. But I think I dipped my front right tire just the edge of it in the dirt at the apex, and so it lost traction, and somehow the rear went with it. So it caught me out. I wasn't expecting that whatsoever, so I apexed a little tighter than I normally would. We're talking, I'd say half an inch maybe, which is how close we drive. But hey, it happens. And like I said, I'm happy to have gotten third still. But yeah, it would have been fun to race with those two guys at the front.
Yeah, Kenneth even said during the broadcast, it's a game of inches, and that really drives it home. Now, I still say that you should be proud of a second in the championship, considering the difficulty of Series 10 with all the different cars. But also, I don't know if you have finished first or second in the Clean Driver Award, but I do know you came in tied for the lead on that. So I think considering how clean and how fast you've been all season, you can hang your head pretty high.
Yeah, no, I didn't even realize. I completely forgot about that, honestly, until you just said it. So that's happy. I'm very happy with that. I like to pride myself as keeping it pretty clean out there. And despite what I showed today, yeah, the series, I like to think that I kept the wheels pointed forward.
Well, again, congratulations. I'm sure it wasn't quite what you had hoped for, but you still ran a phenomenal season.
Thanks. I appreciate it, Joe.
That was Chris Pye's third place here today, second in the points, which is going to wrap us up. And we actually have an interesting one for our next coverage, because you should join us Sunday, June 25th at 9:45 p.m. Eastern, because we got a special broadcast of the entry class, and that'll actually be at Watkins Glen. We will be back for the sport class next Wednesday, though. We'd like to thank our sponsors for Series 10. Before we go, though, that includes the Porsche Exchange and Six Sigma Sim Racing. Big thank you to the steering committee at PCA Sim Racing, and a huge thanks to our team tonight, Kenneth, Ryan, Cameron, and Dougie. Also, none of this would be possible without those behind the scenes at Podium Esports, Ryan Bauer, Gary Sexton, and John Theodore. Thank you so much for watching tonight's broadcast of PCA Sim Racing. I'm Joe Pete, and I'll see you on the track.